Now, have I got something different for you today? And this wasn't really expected. That's just being truthful to you. It kind of came on us as a spur at the moment. Well, it was half planned, but it's not something I had planned to happen today. But two of my kids, especially Nicole, have been at me for the last while about getting a quad for them. Now, they had a quad. It was a cheap Chinese quad. You might have seen it if you have a keen eye. You might have seen it in one of our sheds. It was shown a couple of times. I never really talked about it. I didn't really like it. Not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them, and if something breaks, quite hard to get bits and pieces for them. So Nicole didn't really like it either. It was actually a bit small as well. That was another big thing. They kept on at me about getting them a quad, and you know what, the girls have worked really well. I know you see Nicole a lot on the videos, but I have two of the girls that work really well every morning, even here. Mornings when they're not at school, and evenings after school. They help me every evening, and they've been absolutely super to me. Saves me an absolute world of work. So I did make a promise to them that I would look around for something half sturdy, half decent for them. I wasn't going to spend a huge amount of money at the same time, but I wanted to be still a kind of a decent good quad that you could get parts for and fix up and make it into something actually decent. So after a long bit of searching, it was actually my wife that's seen this pop up right beside me. Was this what looks quite ugly at the minute? But trust me, there's a lot of good things about this. This is a Honda 300 Big Red, as people would call it. Sometimes you would see here on these steel tanks, you'd see a grey sticker across here with Big Red 300 written on it. So I went and I looked at it, and I knew it was rough, right? But it actually wasn't that bad when I went and seen it. And for the money that I paid for it, which wasn't a whole pile, put it that way, we made a deal with the two girls. We actually sold the quad that they had back a couple of weeks ago. We sold another item as well that they weren't using, and we raised a few quid and said, right, we'll put it into something that we can actually fix up and make into a decent quad. When my girls are on the quad, trust me, 100%, I'll be supervising them for a long time, just to make sure that they know exactly how to ride it and they respect it. They'll be wearing their helmet at all times. I had one of these for years when I was younger and absolutely loved the thing. Could fire nearly anywhere. They were made really, really robust and very, very simple to work on. So that's what we've landed upon. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this into any kind of series because it was something I kind of want to work on with my girls. But you know what? A lot of people do ask me questions about quads and maybe changing brakes and doing a little bit of maintenance on your quad. So you might pick up a few bits and pieces that I can share with you on this, because we have to do a lot of work on this. Yeah, there's major problems with this quad, and that's partly why the reason it was so cheap. But I can fix it all myself. It's all jobs that I have done before, and I know these quads fairly well. I've spent years working on quads. I built a Yamaha Banshee, Raptor and a Blaster, and built them all complete nut and bolt restoration. But I'm not doing that with this. This I'm going to get it mechanically right, which is not going to take me very long to do. I already have picked up a few parts for it now already that we're going to be putting on it. It does run, but has a lovely cloud of smoke of it and a lovely clattering noise that nobody likes to hear. The tapping noise that we're hearing is coming from the head, so I know straight away that I'm going to have to rebuild the top part of this engine. So it's going to be a top end rebuild. The bottom end I don't know until I have the head off and see what the play is down there. I'm hoping that it's okay. These engines were relatively very, very strong, but they did take a lot of abuse over the years. People just slogged into them and abused them. So we're going to have to look into that engine. A lot of work to be done there. The quad can't be rode at the moment because it's got a serious bad wobble in this back wheel. I mean, a serious bad wobble. And the reason for that is the main stem has been welded to the hubs. So obviously the splines have rung on both sides and they're welded in place. Now he told me this on the phone before I looked at it, that it had been welded. He was very honest about it. Look, it needs a new axle. That's what it needs, new axle and new hubs. So they're the two main big things. Everything else is just cosmetic. That's really all. Lights, everything else works on it. We do need to put a new cable on here. I got the cable on the way home. I have a new battery for it as well. This steering, huge play in it. And that play is coming, if you can see, from here. From the bottom of the steering rod here, there's a bearing, and we're going to be replacing that bearing. I already have it got. Cheapest ships, didn't cost the earth, so we're going to be putting a new bearing in there. One thing that would have made me walk away from it is if the back differential had a problem with it. But I had a good look at it and it seems to be absolutely fine. Doesn't seem to be any play whatsoever in the back diff. So that's pretty important when you're looking at any Honda quad. Always jack it up a little bit, give it a little bit of movement and see what the back diff is like, because they're expensive. So now we're down in front of the dairy. Sorry, my camera cut out, as GoPros have a lovely tendency to do. It just took a mind of its own and said to switch itself off when I was halfway through washing the quad, so sorry about that. Now the guy I bought this quad off had another larger quad himself, and he took me up and asked me to have a quick look at the steering on his other quad, and I could quickly see what was wrong with his steering. But if you've got a steering in your quad that's starting to get loose, it's one of possibly two things that's wrong. For starters, look at your steering. Is the movement in your steering back and forth, side to side? If you find the movement in your handlebars is back and forth, or side to side, or whatever you want to call it, that's usually a bushing that sits just in there. If you can see, there's a little rubber bushing in there, and it's held on by two 13mm nuts you take off on both sides. That clip just comes apart, and there you have your bushing in there. The bushing itself is quite inexpensive, and that will solve that problem. But if you see your handlebars have movement up and down, that's a different thing. That means the bearing at the very bottom, which is in here, at the bottom of your steering rod, there's a bearing that goes through the housing here, and that bearing is probably worn out. And that's a normal thing. That just comes from wear and tear. It's kind of a seal unit. You can't grease it or anything. So it's normal for them to wear out, especially in a quad with a bit of age, just like this one here. So now, she looks a bit different. She's up at her rear end, as they say. Now, before you do this with your quad, look, it's fine to do it with oil in it. As long as you leave the quad for a good few hours after that, the oil come back down. But what I tend to do is, as you can see my oil bath over here, I let the oil out of it before I do it. I'm going to be servicing it anyway, so I just let the oil out of it completely, and that way there's no harm being done. Make sure you turn off the petrol as well. There's no petrol in the tank of this, it's completely drained out. But if there is petrol in your tank, turn off your tap, which is here, tank, because your carburetor will overflow, your floats can't do their job, and it will flow out the overflow pipe out onto the ground. But it's much easier for us now to get at the actual axle. And you can see I have the nut removed. There's supposed to be a lovely bearing in here, but when I open this, all the little ball bearings fell out on top of themselves, and that's where the play is there now, up and down. As you can see, the frame needs a bit of work now, there's no doubt about it. I'm going to actually plate this whole section here, make it really, really strong. The engine mounts is in terrible condition. That cross member there is going to have to be replaced. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to put another solid bar in there. This here, because you can see that side there is not even fixed to anything, so it does need a bit of work on the frame. I don't mind that. I actually enjoy that kind of work, and now when I have my own MIG welder, take my time and fix up the whole frame to strengthen the whole thing up. Another thing you can also see is Nicole's just been really kind here, being my camera lady today. These steering rod ends are completely shot, so I have brand new steering rod ends for it as well, just to solid the whole thing up when we're at it. There we go. There's the bushing there now, and if you lift that steering up, no problem then accessing that bushing and taking it out and replacing it. The one that I have in here looks very, very good. It looks excellent, so there doesn't look to be any problems there. It looks like it was changed fairly recently. So all I do now is lift the steering rod up and pull out. There we go. Just pop that up out of the way. So this is our bearing here, and this little balls is just left in it. There's absolutely no bearing there, it's completely gone. So next thing we do is remove this seal, remove the one on the far side. There should be a little circlip in there if it's not completely rotted out, and that we have to remove as well, and then get our new bearing in place. So there's the remnants of our bearing. Not much left of it. So there's our bearing seal from the far side. Just tap it out from here. Now we have to get our bearing out. Everything pushes upwards, by the way. We have a circlip in here now that we should be able to see. We have to scrape it first, and I hope it's not rotted out, because I don't think I have one of those. There we go. And that's still in good nick. No problem reusing that. same inside the hole here. This helps the whole thing to sit into place. Just grease this whole shaft here as well before I put it in. It's only a matter of popping it back in here now. Right. There we are. This job's a wee bit easier having my camera girl here helping me. She's picking up little tips because after all it is her quad and her sisters, of course. You have to share, you know that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. So these are steering rods. I have them nicely soaked here in WD-40 for a while, hoping they might loosen. I'm probably going to have to add a bit of heat. So you ever get kind of confused which is outside, which is inside, the notch is always next to wheel. That's where you can do your adjustments. So if you want to loosen these two nuts, you can adjust your wheels in and out using that notch. So that notch always goes next to wheels. Right. What do you think, Nicole? Oh, we got this side's going to come off handy enough. These here are genuine Honda parts. Look, there wasn't much difference in the price of the two, so I went with these. So that'll screw on in here. Screw that right up to this. One thing I am disappointed in with the price of these and all, that you didn't come with a new nut. Means I have to reuse the old nut. Very surprised it didn't come with a brand new nut on the end of it. And a new split pin to go along with that. Popping these in couldn't be easier. There we go. Yeah, I'd like to see a new nut on that now. Definitely. So that's one of our track rod ends in, and no big deal about that. And it leaves now that the steering will be lovely and solid, and at least now we can loosen these and adjust them anytime we want. The old ones actually were remarkably good condition, but the whole housing here was all perished and there was a lot of play in here, and that all follows through into the steering. So next thing we have to do is just put on our other side here and get our back on our feet. So now it's the following day. I'm sorry about the flicker of the lights. That's the LEDs. There's not much you can do about that. You could change the frame rate on the camera. I've tried to change it a few times, but I can't eliminate it completely. So sorry if you're sensitive to light, flashing lights. It's not great, I understand. Our steering, look at that. Solid as solid can be. That's a good result. That is a common problem on a lot of quads. You will see even on quads that are only 2 or 3 years old, you'll start to see a little bit of play coming in the steering. And that's exactly what causes it. Now you know, if you need to fix it yourself, save yourself a few quid, don't be afraid of tackling it. Some of the bigger quads with power steering, perhaps let an expert look at those, but there's no reason why any of you can't tackle that job on your own. The next episode you're going to see is where we're going to fix this back axle with a brand new axle that's sitting right here. Brand new hubs, they're up in the box up there. Brand new brakes, bearings, new cables throughout. We are going to do it all. Isn't that right, Billy? And it's not too far away. So that's it. It's something different from the norm. This is the kind of stuff I like to do. If you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Talk to you in the next one. Don't you look at me like that.